This is Cruise Radio.
Cruise Radio is brought to you in part by tripinsurance.com. Travel insurance done right by the people who know travel insurance. Get a quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio.
Rick just returned from a transatlantic cruise on Cunard's Queen Mary. It went from Southampton to New York City. He joins us on the line to talk all about his cruise. How you doing, my friend?
I'm fine. How are you, Doug?
Good. Now, I got a question because didn't maybe a few years back they make the transatlantic cruise one day longer? Like used to be 6 and now it's 7, or it used to be 7 and now it's 8?
Yeah. When the first time I crossed on Queen Mary 2 in 2007, it was a 6-day crossing. Mm-hmm. And then shortly after that, they made it typically a 7-day crossing.
Do you think that was a revenue move, or do you think it was just to kind of give a little bit more of a flex in the schedule going from point A to point B?
A little bit of both. One, you on a transatlantic, since there are typically no ports, you have captive audience, so the onboard spend is a little bit greater. Mm-hmm. But it also is a significant savings as far as fuel is concerned.
All right, so what we'll do here is get some pre-cruise thoughts. What made you want to take this transatlantic on the Queen Mary 2? Because you're no stranger to Cunard. We were just chatting before we started recording, and you have like 20-plus sailings with Cunard.
Yeah, I love them. I've sailed with them since the 80s, and my family has sailed with them since the 1950s. And I love the transatlantic crossing. And this was actually the 4th time on Queen Mary 2. The last one was back in 2018. So it had been a little while since we had done that. And I wanted to go to England in London and see a friend and see some exhibitions, and really wanted to avoid the long-haul flight and enjoy my trip back home.
So you make your way from Indy over to Southampton. What kind of pre-cruise time did you do, and what did you see?
We stayed in London for 5 nights and went to see some exhibitions, 2 at the Victoria and Albert Museum, Cartier, and the new Marie Antoinette style. And then ran over to Paris for the day, see a exhibition of portraits by the American artist John Singer Sargent. So it was a busy 5 days, and it was nice to get on board the ship and relax a little bit.
You make it sound so casual. You just went over to Paris for the day. So I take it there's a high-speed train?
Yeah, Eurostar. It's a 2.5-hour trip each way. And Paris, I find Paris kind of frustrating at times. Mm-hmm. And it was raining. The traffic was awful. But the exhibition was wonderful. So we spent all of about 6 hours in Paris and went right back to London.
Oh, gotcha. So it's time to board the Queen Mary 2 there in Southampton. How was the embarkation there? And is it, I guess, like from the curb to the ship, how long does it take? And are there any kind of special, not visas, but like electronic, digital paperwork you had to file before you went over there?
The United Kingdom has a new tourist visa that you do online, and it's good for 2 years. So we had to do that prior, but it's attached to your passport, and you don't even get a confirmation email. You just says it was approved. Mm-hmm. So you hope that's fine, and it was. If you're from the EU or UK, they need a certain kind of a visa to come into the United States, and they were checking for those. U.S. citizens obviously didn't on that part.
Right.
But
gotcha.
Yeah, there's several hoops you have to jump through now.
And is that something the cruise line is reminding you along the way, like being an American going over there saying, hey, don't forget to get your ETA?
Yes, because, you read horror stories of people getting to the airport and they say, nope. Or, sometimes it takes 5 minutes to get it, but it can take a day or two, if it's approved.
Yeah.
So that's not something people need to put off. They need to do it as soon as they're booked, or even better, thinking about going.
So you're at the pier. How long did it take you from the curb to the ship?
In this case, it probably was about 35 minutes or so. There were still a lot of people boarding, but I had priority embarkation. So we skipped the lines inside the check-in area, but then everybody had to go through the security line. And that was where the holdup was a little bit, but it wasn't bad at all.
Returning to the Queen Mary 2, I should say. What were your first impressions walking on the ship this time around? And do you walk into, is it an atrium or like what is the grand entrance there?
Yeah, it's called the Grand Lobby, and it's a 3-story atrium, and that's where primary boarding is. And it's a very elegant space. It's understated. But it's calming. They usually have a string quartet playing music, and there's staff there to direct you to lifts to take you either to your stateroom or if you wanted to go to the Lido, a couple of decks up.
What kind of stateroom did you book for this transatlantic cruise, and what did you think of it?
In the past, on the crossings, I've had insides, but we wanted to have a little bit larger, so I went with an obstructed view balcony cabin. And if you pay really close attention to deck plans or use a couple of websites out there that show photos of the views for individual cabins, I was able to select one that had a minimal obstruction in between a lifeboat and one of the little life rafts. So we really had a nice floor-to-ceiling glass view, although it was too cold to sit out on the balcony. It was great to have all that natural light.
Yeah, and sometimes, even though it's a little too cool out there, just stepping out and getting some of that fresh ocean air does wonders.
Yeah, I love it.
Rick, with this ship, the Queen Mary 2, so for instance, Queen Victoria is like a Vista-class ship. I guess I'm trying to ask, does it have any sisters out there? No? Okay.
No, she's the only ocean liner in the world in service. She was built for the North Atlantic. Mm-hmm. So her steel is about double the thickness of a traditional cruise ship. And
Wow.
her hull design is designed to cut through the storms in any weather. And we had a couple of days that it was kind of rough, and I wouldn't have been overly thrilled to be in late September, peak hurricane season, crossing the Atlantic in the northern part on a cruise ship, and we just went right through it. It was fabulous. There was a little bit of a pitch, but it was nothing compared to what it would be on a much smaller or just a traditional cruise ship.
As far as space for the transatlantic crossing for the luggage and your gear, how was the space in there, and how about the plug situation?
She hasn't been updated, so there aren't USB sockets. She's going to undergo a major refit in March of 27. While they haven't announced everything they're going to do, I suspect the cabins are going to receive a lot of attention, particularly bathrooms and some of the electronic upgrades. Although, there were outlets for UK, US, and EU sockets, so we didn't have a real problem with it. It's just not convenient to be able to plug your phone in by the nightstand.
Now, let's talk about dining on board this ship. And if I recall from, I think, an interview in the past, is it called the King's Court Buffet?
Yes, King's Court. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so how was the buffet there, and did it ever feel too crowded during your sailing?
We only ate in there twice. Well, no, I take that back. We did 3 times. Once on disembarkation, which that was busy, and then once during the crossing. And of course, anytime that you're going to have a buffet situation when you're boarding, it tends to be a little bit busy. But there's so many areas of it that wind in and out that you can almost always find a place to sit. And they were very good about clearing tables. And the food quality was excellent.
Do you have to go there with an open palate, or will you find, like if you're a North American meat and potatoes kind of person, is it more British fare? Does it lean that way, or is it a good mix?
It's a good mix. It leans that way. The one thing that I find kind of odd is complimentary beverage dispensers. You have water, hot water, they'll have lemonade, but almost never iced tea. Now, I guess that's different for the Queen Elizabeth, which is now based in Miami, for the Caribbean season, that I've been reading reports that they have changed that there. But that's fairly typical for British ships. You'll have, hot and cold water, but you won't have iced tea.
For the main dining room, now, what I remember here is that does Cunard have, I don't want to call it a class system because it kind of sounds antiquated using that term, but they have, I guess you described it best, is it where you sleep is where you eat kind of thing?
Yes, you have broadly 3 categories with one subdivision. The vast majority, about 80% of the passengers, are in Britannia class cabins. So that's your basic, you're inside your ocean view and balcony accommodations. Then there's some high-level, regular-size cabins that are Britannia Club, and that gives you single-seating dining for breakfast, lunch, and dinner in a dedicated restaurant. And then you have what's called the Princess and the Queen's Grill, and that's the what would be considered the old traditional first class or ultra luxe accommodations. They are all suites. And so the mini suites dine in Princess Grill, the full-size suites dine in Queen's Grill, and they have a small lounge that they share and a small outdoor deck space. Everything else is open to everybody.
Now, are the menus elevated between each one?
Between Britannia and Britannia Club, it's minimal. You have a couple of a la carte additions, but in Princess Grill, the menu expands, and in Queen's Grill, it's vast, and you can order off menu as well. As long as they have ingredients, they will make it for you.
Okay.
But you're also paying significantly more.
How was the service in the food?
I thought it was fabulous. Whether we were in the lounges, the bars, and in the dining room, the service was absolutely wonderful. And we were just in Britannia. We had a great waiter and assistant waiter, and had no complaints whatsoever.
Okay, so then that's the main dining room. We'll talk about specialty dining then. What kind of specialty restaurants are on the QM2, and which ones did you go to?
There's one dedicated, and it's called the Veranda Grill, and it is aft on deck 8, so it overlooks the stern a little bit, and it's a traditional steakhouse. It's open for lunch and dinner, and it's basically the same menu, but about half the price at lunch versus dinner. And we went for a lunch one day, and while I wasn't overly thrilled with it, I wasn't terribly impressed with the food. It was fine, but to me, it wasn't that much better than just going into the main dining room. But I thought it was interesting that it wasn't one of those cases that like blow your socks off. That you think this is just absolutely incredible.
They have the Golden Lion Pub, I believe it's called, on there, which is more like an Irish pub. Yeah. Is that correct?
English pub.
English, okay.
And you can have lunches are served in there. Most of the items are complimentary. There's a few things now that are extra charge. And while I love their fish and chips, we never made it in there on this crossing at all.
And then any other specialty restaurants that you hit up that we didn't talk about, or any grab and go or coffee shops?
Did. They have pop-ups in the evening that take over a section of the buffet. One of them one day can be Italian, one can be Indian, one can be Asian, but I have not tried that. We were just so happy with the food in the Britannia dining room and really enjoyed our table companions. So we just went to the main dining room for dinner.
So once you leave Southampton, you're basically steaming straight towards New York City here. So let's talk about the entertainment. Like, how do they keep you entertained for that many sea days in a row?
Cunard is a master at that. By and large, the clientele on board are well-traveled, well-educated, and they're very, very engaged. They're interesting to talk to. They like to talk to and meet new people. And so they have what's called Cunard Insights, and it's a series of lecturers. Typically a crossing will have 2 or 3 different lecturers. There was one on this one, a gentleman from New York had shows about skyscrapers, the history behind them in New York. Another person gave programs on the history of canals, which turned out to be just fascinating. So there's a wide variety of topics. You don't really know who is going to be on unless you're on a theme cruise until you actually board. But they do a good job of that. They also have a lot of live musicians all around the ship. Andrew Lloyd Webber's brother and his wife, she's a concert cellist. She was on board performing. So there's always something going on all through the day and even production shows then into the evening.
The planetarium on there looks really cool. How was that?
Didn't go. It had been out of service for quite a while, and it was back open again. I had done that years ago, and it's interesting. I'll tell you the thing that they had that floored me, and I had read that they were offering this maybe 2 weeks before I went. The virtual reality experience. And then they had different things you could do. One of them was something in outer space. But the one that appealed to me was a 20-minute session that you are on Titanic right before her maiden voyage, and you can wander around several of the decks.
Whoa.
And see who was in these cabins and what these rooms were used for. It was absolutely fascinating. It makes you slightly sick because the ship was moving and you're spinning around and looking at this. I'd never done a virtual reality type thing, but it was so unique and so well done. And it was, I think, $15 a person to do that. So I thought that was a great, innovative addition to the offerings on board. And then they also have, which a lot of the ships do, the behind the scenes tour. But because the ship is unique, I wanted to do this, and I had tried 2 times previously, and it was already booked up. So if a person's interested in doing a behind-the-scenes tour on Queen Mary 2, you do not walk to the tour desk as soon as you board and get your name on a list. And it's about $130 and 3 hours and no photography. You cannot take your cell phones with you. Security is tight. But you go everywhere from where they store the anchors to the engine control area and to cold storage for food. It was just an absolutely amazing experience.
With the VR, that sounds really cool. So is that, I've seen it set up a couple different ways. I see it where you put the goggles on and you're kind of just standing there and you're walking within a rectangle. And I've also seen the pods you sit in and control it that way. What was this one like?
You sit in a chair and there was like, I don't know, 15 or 20 people, something like that. And you had a joystick type thing. Okay. And you could move, and like I said, I hadn't done that before, and what was jarring when you appear to walk into a wall. But the moving around, you like you're standing in the room and you spin in your chair, which turns you around. It was fascinating, but yeah, with the combination of the ship moving, it made it a little bit too authentic at times.
How were the sea days as far as crowds and congestion?
This ship has such a great design, and she's large enough to accommodate what typical cruise ships would, maybe another 1,000 passengers. So there was little crowding. If you wanted a coffee in the morning at Sir Samuel's, it could be difficult to get a seat, but you just go across the corridor into another lounge and have a seat there. Other than that, you could walk down a corridor and see maybe 1 or 2 people. The crowding is rarely ever an issue on Queen Mary 2.
That's good to know. So with this ship, how big is the casino?
It's small. Okay. They actually shrunk it a few years ago when they added a few single cabins. Mm-hmm. But it does have tables and it has the slot machines.
Can you smoke in there?
I don't think so.
There's really no ports of call because you were from point A to point B, from the UK to the US of A. Anything exciting happen on your ride over? You mentioned that you have a little bit of rough weather.
It was a little rough, high winds and waves. But the interesting thing was about 4 days in the afternoon, they have a forward observation lounge called the Commodore Club, and it was about 5 o'clock. And so the sun was hitting the water at an odd angle, and sitting there, and then we saw there was either humpbacks or right whales coming up. They would come up, and then they're dark gray, and underneath their flippers is brilliant white, and they would just slap the water and go back down, and then come up and smack the water with their fins. And it was so cool to see them that close, much better than what I had ever seen sailing in Alaska or anywhere else. And then saw a few more than the day after that. So that was a real treat.
As you mentioned earlier, this is an ocean liner and not a cruise ship. So how do the outdoor decks differ from a cruise ship?
Well, it's much higher. Promenade is up on deck 7, and it's probably, those ships that still have traditional promenades, it's probably double the width. So she has great outdoor space, and the aft is terraced. There's an aft pool. They have an indoor pool up on deck 12, but the bow is very, very pointed and extends much further out than on traditional cruise ships. But this ship has amazing outdoor spaces as well.
What makes it so amazing? Is it like just little nooks and crannies to sit and chill out and just kind of watch the day go by?
Yeah, you can watch the ocean and realize that the waves may be 15 or 20 feet. You're remarkably stable as she goes through. She has dual sets of stabilizers, powerful engines if you need to divert to avoid a storm. And the way she's constructed with her main public rooms are on decks 2 and 3, rather than so many up on high decks as traditional with a lot of cruise ships. So you have a smoother ride.
Do you go to the spa at all?
No, I didn't at all on this crossing. Oh, if you like libraries, they have a 10,000 volume library. It's the largest at sea.
Whoa, 10,000 books?
Yeah, 10,000 books. And it is always busy. It's almost so busy it can be difficult to get a space to sit down.
It is good to see libraries still out there, like when Holland America, with the latest class of ship they did on Koningsdam, New Statendam and Rotterdam, they put that big library in there on 3 or 4, and I absolutely love to see that because so many cruise lines are taking them away and putting in bars or lounges or what have you.
Exactly, and I work at a library, so I'm a little bit biased.
Yeah. So you make your way to, what do they dock in Brooklyn in New York?
Yeah, docks in Brooklyn, a Red Hook.
Okay. Is there any extra customs to go through coming from the UK?
No, we had to clear regular U.S. customs, which was kind of slow for us. They didn't have that many agents there. But this was right a few days after the government shutdown had started, so that might have impacted it a little bit. It probably took us about an hour and 20 minutes, I would say, to go through it. And then we had a Cunard transfer because we weren't staying in the city. We did a Cunard transfer to Kennedy to fly back home.
Do you have any first-time tips to offer anyone who might be considering sailing Cunard?
You know, I think particularly the transatlantic crossing is a bucket list item, and there's stuff of legend. So really, if you have any kind of an interest at all in doing that, I suggest you go for it. It's absolutely wonderful. It's not as stuffy as people think it is. There were 2 nights that were dress up, but you don't have to have a tuxedo. You can have a dark suit and be perfectly fine. And if you want to go all out, there was a group of people on board that were dressed in 1920s attire, and they would change 3 or 4 times a day. They had a ball on the ship, and it was fun to watch them wandering around. So it's just such a wonderful, wonderful experience. I suggest anyone to try it at least once.
And for the dress code, speaking of that, like if you were to roll in there with a pair of nice jeans and a sports jacket, would they like politely turn you away from the main dining room?
Not on a casual night. On a formal night, yes.
And then I guess how integrated is the Cunard app in the experience?
They don't have an app.
Okay, there you go.
It's just no. It's a web page, but you can use it to log into your account and do the internet on it. And you know, since they've upgraded to Starlink, which everybody has, it really worked very well. And their onboard TV system was pretty decent as well. But the app on that was fine. You could check the daily activities. You could check your account. And you could even book like the VR thing that I wanted to do. I did that through the app, website, whatever.
You were mentioning that you did the VR Titanic thing. As you're passing or getting close to the spot where the Titanic went down, do they make note of that?
Yeah, they do. And it varies each crossing as to maybe how close. I remember one time we were, I think, within about 50 miles or so. This time we were about 200 miles away. So it depends on weather and the routing.
Gotcha. Looking back, what was the biggest highlight of this cruise on the Queen Mary 2?
Just spending 7 glorious days at sea and meeting the most wonderful people and enjoying 25-hour days on 5 of the days of the crossing, and having a wonderful time with good food and a beautiful ship to just relax in.
How are these cruises priced for the back and forth? So I know a lot of people take these because they don't like to fly, so they'll use these as their mode of transportation. Are they priced with a premium?
You could start at an inside around $700 a person for a week.
That's not bad. Okay.
So you can't fly most places, for that. And it goes on up to $25,000 or $35,000 a person, depending on where you want to stay on board. But it is very, very cost effective and a whole lot more pleasant than flying economy.
Well, in closing here, Rick, it's been a few years, but you were back on the Queen Mary 2. Give me your final thoughts.
She's a unique vessel, and if you ever have the opportunity to sail on Queen Mary 2, I strongly suggest you do it.
All right. I've been talking with Rick about his transatlantic crossing from the UK to the US on Cunard's Queen Mary 2. Rick, always good talking to you, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing this experience with us.
Thank you. It's always great to speak with you.
Just back from a cruise? Let's talk about it. Email Doug at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,